What is up everyone, Movie Win back again with another video, and today is going to be another end of month vlog where I just talk about all the movies or TV shows that I've watched in the month of January 2024. Yes, another year is upon us, so another 12 of these to go until 2025. Now before I do get into it, I'd just like to say I want to give a big shout out here to my good friend Sam Glendenning, who's been on the channel before. I've actually done a live stream with him. We've got another one in the pipeline, which should be coming very soon. But he's actually started his YouTube channel now, and it's called Sammy G's World of Cinema. So I'm going to leave a link to Sam's channel down below. He's just doing his Blu-ray collection for now to start the channel off. He's doing it in parts. He's done like 4 parts up to now. It might be 5 by the time you see this video. But Sam, I just think you're a natural on camera, mate. And well done for starting your YouTube channel. Looking forward to plenty of more videos. You know, and if you guys know who Sam is or are in the community, in the Blue Tube community, whatever, I'm sure you guys will all know him. He's such a great guy, such a friendly person. I speak to him a hell of a lot over on Instagram and stuff. So Sam, looking forward to our live stream, mate, and looking forward to checking out more of your content. So please get over there, guys, check him out. If you like what you see, give him a subscribe. He's already at over 100 subscribers now, so well done, mate. So let's just get into it, guys, with the first thing that I watched in January. So the first thing I watched was a Blu-ray that Tom180 sent me. He sent me quite a few things now, so Tom, thank you so much, mate. And that is The Italian Job. This was a first-time watch for me, so this is the first movie I watched of the year. And I've always been intrigued by this film. I know it's quite a popular film here in Britain, especially with the 3 minis and stuff like that. You know, you always see that scene on TV and stuff when they're showing clips of this movie. And this is basically Michael Caine, who comes out of prison and he's been asked to do this job. And in Italy, and he has to get a gang together. And it's quite a complicated job, so they all have different parts of job descriptions and stuff to make this flow and make it all come together. And he's the mastermind behind it, obviously. Now, I thought this was a pretty good film. I didn't love it like a lot of other people, but I do think it's a pretty good movie. Maybe if I watched it a little bit more back in the day, I would have appreciated it a bit. But I do think it's a solid British movie. I can see why it's very popular amongst many Britons. And, you know, it's in a lot of British pop culture. I loved the third act with the mini chase. I thought that was excellent. So yeah, I quite enjoyed it. You know, it's a fine movie to watch. And Tom, thank you so much for sending me this once again. Glad to have finally seen The Italian Job. Next up, we have Two Witches, and I was intrigued about this one after hearing Nige talk about it, Rock God 2004, over on a live stream, and I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna give it a go. It's a newish movie. It's in 2021, I believe. And this is an anthology film that about 2 stories about witches that kind of come together towards the end. Now, the first story is about this woman who's in a restaurant, and she doesn't like the way this older woman is looking at her, and this older woman is actually a witch. And everything after the restaurant, you know, ever since that woman was just staring at her there, her life starts to change a little bit. Things are happening in the house, you know, she just feels very uncomfortable. And her husband is telling her that, look, it's all in her imagination and stuff. But things do go down a dark path. Now, the second story is about this woman who gets a new housemate, played by Rebecca Kennedy, is it? Who is fantastic in this film. She's the best thing about Two Witches. She's got the whole look of a witch. And she's like a young witch. She's like 20 years old or something. But some of the faces she pulls in this were quite creepy and terrifying, I thought. So she was cast perfectly. But this Rebecca Kennedy character is bringing guys back to the hotel, to the room, sorry. She's making lots of noise. She's just a nightmare roommate from hell, basically. She's always saying things that are putting people on edge and making you squirm a little bit, thinking, oh, that's awkward. So when her housemate wants her to leave, the housemate's life starts to go a little bit disastrous as well. And these 2 stories do come together towards the end. I thought this movie was okay. I just think it would have been better if it kept a little bit more simplified. It tries to go a little bit too art housey for my liking, and it didn't really make sense. I kind of had to look up what it meant after the movie, and maybe that was me being a bit stupid there, but then I thought, oh yeah, okay, that's what it's doing. But I just wish it would have just told a normal story. I think that would have worked better instead of doing all this, not pretentious imagery, but you know, it's just one of them. I just kind of wanted it. I didn't want to work it out. Maybe I was just tired at the time or whatever. But overall, a little bit of a disappointment. But Rebecca Kennedy was awesome in this, so that is Two Witches. Next up, we have Notting Hill, a first-time watch for me. My cousin Michael actually gave me this Blu-ray, and my wife said, "Oh, he's giving you Notting Hill, let's watch it. I haven't seen that film in years." She loves it. So I had, okay, I'll just watch it. It's not very often she picks the movie. But yeah, Notting Hill, really, really great British rom-com. This I absolutely loved this film. Basically, Julia Roberts is this actress. She's trying to stay out the limelight a little bit. Well, not stay out the limelight, but everyone can see it in the street. She goes into this bookstore, and Hugh Grant works there, and they sort of strike a romance that you probably didn't want to. You probably don't see coming, because Julia Roberts, you think she's going to go with another celebrity and stuff. But this romance starts to happen. However, Julia Roberts lives a very awkward life, and Hugh Grant is just like this nobody, really. And that sort of causes division at times with them trying, but you do want them to get together. However, things just get in the way all the time. Rhys Ifans was absolutely hilarious in this movie as Hugh Grant's roommate. Oh my god, I laughed so many times at that character. But yeah, really, really good, heartwarming movie. It totally worked. I'm not gonna lie, I never really go to rom-coms or anything, but when I do, I usually enjoy them, and this was no exception, so that is Notting Hill. Next up, we have a brand new release, my first movie of 2024 that I watched, and that is Night Swim. Now, I've done a full review for this over on my horror channel, which I'll leave down below, guys, if you want to go and check that out. But this was a movie about a haunted swimming pool, let's say. A family go and move to a new house. Yes, that old horror cliche, that easy to go with storyline. And instead of the house being haunted, it's the swimming pool, really. And I was quite intrigued about the swimming pool. I liked the mystery aspect of it. I thought the cast was excellent. Wyatt Russell and his family were all likable characters. And I thought it was going to go for so many jump scares, but it didn't. It was kind of just, the scary scenes just happened in front of your eyes. It wasn't banking on you jumping out your seat. And I thought that was a welcome addition. However, in the third act, when we're all unraveling what's going on with this swimming pool and stuff, it started to lose me, and it just became a little bit dull, and I was like, okay, you can finish the movie now. I'm zoned out. Overall, I didn't hate this. A lot of people are saying it's absolutely awful. I didn't hate it, but it's a very, very average movie that's barely watchable. I think I give it a 5 out of 10. So disappointing start to 2024 there with the new releases. That is Night Swim. Next up, we have 10 Rillington Place, starring Richard Attenborough and John Hurt. Now, this is a true story about the serial killer from London. I think it was all, actually, 10 Rillington Place was also in Notting Hill, coincidentally. And this is a story about John Christie, who's this serial killer, this active serial killer just after the war. But he kind of hides it. He comes across as a very nice guy, a very helpful man in the community, because he's like this doctor, and he says he can help patients and stuff like that. But really, he's got it in mind to kill these people. And John Hurt and his wife, played by Judy Gleason, and their newborn baby, move into this house where Richard Attenborough rents them a room. Sorry, an apartment, should I say. And Richard Attenborough fully has it in his mind to cause harm to this family. Now, I can't really say too much more about where the story goes, but my God, man, this was kind of heartbreaking at times. There's some really dark scenes in this movie. John Hurt, living up to his name, Hurt. You feel so sorry for this character in this movie. Something happens in the film, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that actually happened. And when I read up on this story afterwards, this is really detailed to everything according to Wikipedia. I mean, it feels like it's done to a T, this story. And it even says at the start of the film that the dialogue that people kind of heard in conversation, or what was said to other characters in court, they've used the actual dialogue in this movie to make it more as real as possible. So I do feel like it's a real life portrayal. Richard Attenborough is absolutely terrifying in this. Not terrifying, but he's terrifying because he comes across as charmful, but he's not. And it's a brilliant performance by him. Brilliant performance from John Hurt. And Judy Gleason is actually really good in this as well. Sorry, Judy Gleason. But yeah, a really, really solid movie. It's a 1971 film, but I don't feel like it would feel dated to some people or anything like that. It's a solid movie that I highly recommend. It nearly got my older release of the month, but I was glued to this movie from start to finish. I thought it was fantastic, even though it is a very, very dark film. So that is 10 Rillington Police. Next up, we have another Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and that is Maggie. Now, I say another Arnold Schwarzenegger film because I'm trying to get through all of his movies. I tried to do it towards the end of last year, but it's going to seep into this year now. However, I've watched quite a few, so maybe I'll finish my Arnold Schwarzenegger filmography this year. This one is about, this is like post-Governor Schwarzenegger when he kind of came back into movies because he wasn't allowed to act when he was the governor, of course. And it's about Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's living in this world that's been infected. There are zombies running about, even though we don't see too many of them in this film, but when we do, there's kind of a little slightly different approach to them, I feel, with the way they act and stuff. But basically, it's kind of like the movie Signs, where it all takes place on this farmhouse, and the outside world is in havoc, basically. That's the feeling I got. But his daughter, played by Abigail Breslin, has been bitten or infected, but the infection can take up to 8 weeks for them to fully turn. And when they turn, they are meant to be sent to this place where the government has got all these infected locked in this one place. And Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't prepared to let go of her, put it that way. And he's going to sort of keep her there and defend it all he can. So he kind of guards this farmhouse in case anyone tries to come and take her. But it's the inevitable of what's going to happen to his daughter, basically. However, I just found the film a little bit slow, a little bit dull, and there wasn't too much happening in the film. It all just builds up to this last 20 minutes where you think, okay, what's finally going to happen? It was a good attempt. I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to do something different with the zombie genre. But overall, it didn't really work too much for me. It was a watchable film at best, but that's about it. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of his better roles that he's had post-Governor. So yeah, he's going for it in this movie. So that is Maggie. Next up, we have a Tobe Hooper movie, The Funhouse, a first-time watch for me. A film I've always wanted to watch, especially because of that cover art. And this went out of print for a bit, but then Arrow brought it back out. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to nab this now and finally watch it. I've got to be honest, guys, all the Tobe Hooper movies I've watched, I haven't really enjoyed all that much, apart from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which ironically is my favourite horror movie of all time. So I'm inclined to think that he got a little bit lucky with that movie. People may say that's blasphemy or whatever, but I just haven't really enjoyed most of the other movies I've seen. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 done nothing for me, really. This, Eaten Alive, wasn't very good. And Poltergeist is not a film that I actually love or anything, to be honest. I just think it's a very mediocre film. So, I've still got the Mangler and stuff to watch, so hopefully it will pick up a little bit. But this was probably my least favourite film of his. It's not much story to it. A bunch of teenagers go to this carnival that they warned not to go to and end up staying the night in this fun house and all these carnies. That's where they kind of hole up through the night and stay. But they're all like sinister people. And there's this guy running around with a stupid mask on, trying to pick them off one by one. But it just isn't a very good film. The carnies were very unlikable, even though they're meant to be. But sometimes you like villains who are ones you love to hate. And these are just bad characters, if you like. I can't really explain it, but the main protagonists as well weren't the most likable people, and they just make dumb decisions like staying in the funhouse. Why would you do that? So yeah, I just wasn't really big on this. It done nothing for me. Now I might rewatch this at some point because I do want to review a lot of Tobe Hooper movies on my horror channel because I'm planning on a Tobe Hooper ranking, but man, I hope the other two movies pick up a little bit and that'll entice me to go back to this and the other movies I've got to watch by him, and that maybe entice me to go back and watch this again and review it. But yeah, I didn't really like this one, unfortunately, guys. I know a lot of people do, but it just done nothing for me. So that is The Funhouse. Okay, so this next movie is a movie that has been asking me to be watched by a subscriber for a good few months now. and I finally watched this. So Diogray Yadav, I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, my friend. It's not the most common name over here in England, but he's been asking me to watch a movie that is on Amazon Prime called Sardar Udham. And Sardar Udham, yes, Sardar Udham, right. And this is an Indian film, I believe, that is based on a real life event that I did not know had happened. And I've been trying to find the time to watch this, but it's nearly a 3 hour movie. I think it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I just haven't really found that time. But the guy kept asking me, and you know what? I like to please people on this channel, especially my subscribers. So I decided to finally sit down and watch this because he was really adamant that I'd like this movie and stuff. And I gotta say, this was a really, really hard hitting film. It's about this massacre that happened, and one of the people who survives this, called Sardar Udham, he escapes and he vows to take revenge. Now, this British commander, this is all in World War One, by the way, and when the British was kind of ruling over most other countries, and especially they ruled over India and stuff. I'm not too clued up on the history of the World War or anything like that. It's not my go-to subject. But the British Empire decided to have a curfew, and all these people were doing a peaceful protest, and they came along and just shot everyone to try and say, we run the people here. We run this city, basically, this country. So this guy, Sardar Udham, vows to take revenge on the person who gave the call for the army to go in there and massacre everyone. And it happens over events of several years, like 4 or 5 years. And he kind of gets his revenge, but the movie sort of goes backwards as well to tell the story, everything leading up to it. It does go back and forth, basically. And when we actually get to this massacre part towards the end of the film, and the movie, you're kind of thinking, is this guy sort of in the wrong here for doing what he's doing? Because he kind of goes about it in a very violent way to get his revenge, but then the movie sort of goes back to the massacre at the end of the film, and my God, man, you are just like, yes, that guy was so in the right. He went about everything the perfect way. Good on him, because man, this is one of the most hard-hitting movie scenes I have ever seen in a movie. I couldn't quite believe how violent and depressing and sinister it was what happened here. And this scene goes on for like over 5 minutes or something, and it's just people being absolutely blasted left, right, and center, and you are like, oh my God. And I think it is the movie should do this because it tells the real story. It doesn't sugarcoat anything there. And I wasn't even aware that this massacre happened. So it opened my eyes a little bit, and I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. Now, I gotta say, I did think this was a really solid film, really great movie. It does drag on a little bit. I do think it's a long film, and you do feel the pacing. And I was getting a little bit confused after like 20, 30 minutes to say, who's this, who's that, because it does jump back and forth between time periods, but you do get used to it a little bit more as the movie goes on. But it does want your undivided attention, basically. However, I'm glad to have finally watched it, and I thought this was pretty solid, and one that, if you're a history buff, or even if you just don't realize some of the stuff that happened in the war and stuff, I do feel like this is definitely worth watching, because it's a history lesson, put it that way. So that is Sardar Udham. Next up, we have another new release from Shudder, and that is Destroy All Neighbors. I went into this one thinking it'll be a fun movie. Alex Winter's in there, and it's basically about this guy who moves next to this struggling musician and makes his life a living hell. He's the neighbor from hell, but he kind of looks like a demon, and this guy is convinced that there's a demon living next door, and that is Alex Winter in all the makeup and stuff. And the makeup design was great. The practical effects were awesome in this movie, and the movie just starts to go down a very silly path. It goes way over the top, unfortunately. After a good opening 20-30 minutes, it just becomes a little bit frustrating to watch. There were scenes where the music was playing so loud and I couldn't hear the dialogue. And I'm not the only person who thinks this. It's not my TV or anything. I've heard other people say it. I don't know if that was intentional because the music is so loud for the guy next door that it was meant to be loud for the viewer as well, but that didn't work for me. And the characters come in that just like talking heads and stuff like that, corpses coming alive, and it just felt very, very silly with a very depressing ending. So overall, I didn't really enjoy this one. It's my least favourite movie of 2024, unfortunately, up to now. Next up, we have my older release of the month, and it is sort of a new release. It came out late in 2023, but I finally got to it here in 2024. I own the Blu-ray, which I'm about to show up, but this is absolute perfection, and that is the RoboDoc documentary, The Creation of RoboCop. My God, man, this is a 4-part series. Each episode is about an hour long. Some of them, I think one of them's an hour and 20 minutes, so it's nearly a 5-hour documentary on the making of RoboCop, how it all came together, scene by scene. Virtually every cast member is in there. Kurtwood Smith, Peter Weller, you know, the director Paul Verhoeven, they're all in there. And this was just a joyful ride. I was smiling from ear to ear. I just watched 2 episodes and the next day I watched another 2 because I was just like, I need to just watch this now. I was just loving it so much. It was a love letter to RoboCop fans. It was the best documentary I think I've ever seen based on movies. It's an absolute 10 out of 10 perfection of a documentary. And if you're a RoboCop fan, you've got to check this out. You've got to watch this documentary. I absolutely love this one moment where Kurtwood, I'm not going to ruin it, but Kurtwood Smith is going through a line of dialogue, which is one of my favorite lines of dialogue in any movie. And he's talking the way through it, how it all came about. And then he looks at the camera and just says it again. I was like, oh my God, I fist bumped the TV. It was just all that nostalgia came rushing back. And my God, man, I have so much respect for this movie now. It's my favourite movie of all time, but I have even more respect for it now. And Paul Verhoeven is an absolute madman, but it just made me think, I wish I was there watching him just having this meltdown as the movie's being made. Oh my God, it was so funny. There's so many great stories in here. I don't even know where to start. Look, I'm just gushing on about it now because there's so many great things about it, but there is not one negative thing about this documentary. It's absolute perfection. I've seen a couple of documentaries by these guys now. Pennywise, The Story of It. Another one that I'm going to speak about in a minute, but they've all been great. I've loved them all, but this is definitely the best. So this is my older release of the month, RoboDoc, The Creation of RoboCop. Next up, we have Poor Things, and this is going to be my new release of the month. Yes, I know it's a 2023 film, but we got it here in the UK in January. And this sees Emma Stone, who is this woman who killed herself. You know, she throws herself off a bridge, and William Dafoe kind of recovers her body because Emma Stone was pregnant at the time and puts this baby's brain in Emma Stone's head and sort of like brings her back to life. It's like a Frankenstein monster sort of story. And I gotta say, man, Emma Stone was incredible in this movie. It is real Oscar-worthy stuff. And if she wins, I can't have any complaints whatsoever. The arc of her character, going from this little adult baby to womanhood and stuff, it's a great story to go along with. Got William Dafoe is just like a perfect actor now, isn't he? I think he can just do anything these days. He's elite level actor now. There's a few of them now where you can just cast in any role and you'll probably get results. Mark Ruffalo is great in this movie as well as the love interest for Emma Stone. And the movie is just filmed beautifully. Like, there's so many great set locations and stuff. It's like nothing you've seen before. And I just think it had a really good quality visual look to it. Now, I wouldn't say it's a 5-star movie or anything like that, but it's definitely a great film. You know, I can see why everyone was gushing over it. And it's something a little bit different. So, yeah, I do recommend Poor Things. There's a lot of sex in this movie, like a lot of sex scenes in this film. Emma Stone just goes for it. So, just letting you guys know about that. But yeah, Poor Things was a truly phenomenal movie, I thought, and something different. So that is Poor Things, my new release of the month. Next up, we have Society of the Snow, which came to Netflix in January. And a lot of people were gushing over this film, saying how amazing it was. And I thought it was pretty good. This is basically another true story. I think there's another film called Alive that was made in the 70s based on this true story. This is about a plane crash that happens in the mountains. Was it the Swiss mountains? I think it was the Swiss mountains. But anyway, all of these, well, most of the passengers survive, but they're just stuck there. No one can find them. No one can find the plane wreckage or anything. They're just stuck in this mountain, and they use the plane as shelter, basically, like the broken plane. And they have to resort to cannibalism to stay alive because they're there for that long. And it's basically the story about them surviving. Now, this is the one that made you think about the situation. If you were there, what would you do and stuff like that. And you really do feel bad for these characters, and like I said, it constantly makes you think, like, imagine being there now. The film does go on for a little bit. I mean, it's a really long movie. It's over 2.5 hours, but I wish I would have watched this in one night. I hardly ever do this, but me and my wife were having a little bit of trouble with our son. He was just having one of them weeks where he was just waking up all the time and crying. And it took us 3 nights to watch this movie. I usually just watch a movie in a night, but it took us 3 nights because we both kept falling asleep. Having a young son he's 6 months old now, and we've got our other son who's 2. It can be challenging at times when they're this young. So I just had to watch this one in the space of over 3 nights, and I kept trying to. Took me about 5 or 10 minutes to fully adjust to the film when it came back on. But I do think it was a pretty good film. I didn't love it as much as most people. My mum texted me and said, "Oh my God, this film's amazing." She absolutely adored this film. So some people are probably going to love it. I do think it was solid, but it was the 3.5 out of 5 movie for me, basically. So that is Society of the Snow. Next up, we have The Beekeeper, starring Jason Statham. I was quite looking forward to this film. I seen it was like a 90-minute runtime, and Jason Statham was just going to be kicking some ass. So I went into it going, oh, this might be an easy watch. And that's exactly what it was. Basically, Jason Statham is a beekeeper, but he's also a beekeeper. Now, what I mean by that is beekeepers are this intelligence service who basically kick shit out of people. They're like secret agents, and they're called beekeepers. But he actually works as a beekeeper as well, which is, I don't know if that was a coincidence in a film or whatever, but yeah. He basically, this woman is wronged done by fraud who looks after him on this farm that he works by, or works on. I can't quite remember now, but she's like a close person to family to him, because he doesn't really have anyone else. And she is done for fraud by these people who are just going around scamming everyone. So Jason Statham takes matters into his own hands and tries to bring these people down. I do think the fight choreography here was great. I mean, it's not like levels of John Wick 4 or anything like that, but it is pretty solid. It's very, very fun to watch. Jason Statham really made me laugh in this movie at times. There's one moment when he's walking into a building, he says, "I'm going to burn this building down." And these guys go, "No, I'm going to count to 3. You better be out of here." And he goes, 1, 2, 3. There, I've done it for you. I was laughing my ass off at that. Yeah, it felt like an old school Iggsy's action movie that Jean-Claude Van Damme or someone would be in, but it's Jason Statham. And I thought he was pretty good in the film. There were scenes involving an FBI agent that we kept cutting to, which I just did not care for whatsoever. I couldn't really latch onto that character at all. But everything else was fine. It's a very, very easy watch. And if you're not too fussed on it, definitely give it a go on streaming when it comes, because you can have a lot of fun with it. But it's not a movie that's going to make you think afterwards or anything. It's kind of just like in and out. So that is The Beekeeper. Next up, I watched my favourite movie of all time, of course, and that is RoboCop. Yes, the RoboDoc documentary made me want to go back and watch this. I think it was like a few days after. I couldn't stop thinking about the movie because I was like, I need to watch this again. And this is one of my favourite times watching RoboCop, apart from obviously the first time, and then when I finally seen the full R-rated version, because I was watching the edited for TV versions for so many years, and I've also been to the cinema to see this, so they were great times watching it. But when I watched this again, I just seen it in a totally different way because of that documentary, and I just found even more respect for the film, like I said I did with the documentary. I absolutely love this movie, man. I never know when to start when talking about RoboCop, because it is. I've always give this like a 9 out of 10, even though it's my favourite film of all time. I've had a couple of problems with it here and there, like the Ed 209 fight, where RoboCop is fighting him on the stairs, but I actually really liked that scene this time. So I'm starting to think, is this a 10 out of 10 film? It may just well be, because there's nothing really wrong with it, and it is written to perfection. Like, every scene counts, like, apart from the odd media break advert. Every scene counts. So it's so well written. The characters are great. The villains are awesome. The arc Murphy goes on in this movie, getting his revenge, but also the OCP parts of all that coming together and how they work with the villains in this movie, with Dick Jones and Clarence and stuff. There's like a corporate government thing going on there, if you like. It's just an unbelievable movie, man. It really is. Very, very violent. You would be mistaken if you heard the title RoboCop and go, isn't that a kid's movie? But it's far from it. It's one of the most violentest movies I've ever seen. RoboCop is awesome. I just love how he moves and stuff. I can go on about this movie forever. Clarence Boddicker, the greatest villain ever put to film, in my opinion. A fantastic movie. I just can't recommend it enough. If you've not seen RoboCop, definitely give it a go. It's the pinnacle of 80s brilliance. Now, this is only the Blu-ray, but I do want to pick up the 4K. I'm still going to keep this. I might just get the standard 4K edition, or like the 4K Steelbook if that's still going. But yeah, it's a lovely set from Arrow. You can get this set on 4K now as well, but I just feel like I'm buying the same thing with an extra disc, so I'm just going to play the standard 4K and have both of them. But yeah, a fantastic movie. I absolutely love it. I will never not love this movie, ever. So that is RoboCop. Next up, I watched a French extreme horror movie called Frontiers, and this came out at the time of Martyrs and Inside and High Tension and stuff, and it was one I hadn't seen. So Frontiers basically is about these group of criminals who've just done a robbery, and they go to the outskirts of the city, kind of like in the countryside, and these cannibals are living there in the inn that they decide to stay in, and all hell breaks loose, basically. Now, I do think this is a pretty solid horror movie. I like it when you follow... Sorry about that. I like it when you follow the antagonists for once instead of the heroes, kind of like movies like A Clockwork Orange, Titan. They just make it a little bit more interesting, I feel. However, there is a double-edged sword there, because I didn't really care about any of the characters in this movie, whether they were villains or good, well, not even good guys, antagonists, like I say. And there was a lot of gory violence in there. Like, there's some great creative kills in this movie. Some guys put in a gas chamber at one point, and these cannibals are actually neo-Nazis. But the head of the family still thinks he's like this Nazi from where in the war and stuff, and he's like got his uniform on and his little World War II pistol, and that kind of took me out the movie a little bit. He was a little bit too cartoonish for the serious tone it was going for. But overall, I think this is a pretty solid horror film. If you're a horror fan, you're probably going to enjoy it. There's plenty of blood and gore, and just one of them films that, you know, you can just watch, sit back to, and not think too much about, and have a lot of fun with, even though it is quite brutal in places. So that is Frontiers. I've done a full review for this one on my horror channel, which I'll leave down below in the description. So that is Frontiers. Next up, we have another one that I have reviewed over on my horror channel, and this is another documentary by the same guys who made that RoboDoc documentary. And this is Robert Englund, Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares. Sorry, I've messed the title up there. Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story. And obviously, Robert Englund is the guy who plays Freddy Krueger, of course. I love this. This is like an autobiography just happening on screen. We go from the early life of Robert Englund to his early career to his rise to fame with the Elm Street franchise, and there's a big chunk of that in there, guys, all the way to the post-Freddy stuff, but there are sprinkles put in there because of the impact that Freddy had on his life, and also we get to New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason, which happened later on after the whole 80s part of Nightmare on Elm Street. But it was just a really, really great documentary once again. I loved hearing about all the mini stories about Robert Englund. I loved listening to Robert Englund himself. He's the kind of the star of the show here, because he's got one of them voices that you can just listen to all day. This was like a 2-hour long documentary, or just over 2 hours. I could have watched it for another 2 hours, Because when people have lived very interesting lives and they're talking and you're just glued in, you can't help but listen. I didn't love it as much as the RoboDoc documentary, maybe because that's my favourite film of all time, but this is a solid 9 out of 10, horror doc. I not even a horror doc, it's just a documentary about an actor's life. And even if you're not an Elm Street fan, you can still have fun with this. Just being a movie fan, just seeing how all Hollywood works and how actors work and how their parts come about. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Brilliant. That is Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story. Next up, we have Lover's Lane, and maybe I should have watched this one in February because I didn't realise this was actually a Valentine's Day horror movie, even though it probably given away in the title here, I suppose. And this is about a killer going around in this little town, and these characters are just trying to find out who it is, and blah, blah, blah. It's the same story you've seen a million times. Now, I heard a lot of terrible things about this movie, but I was quite enjoying it until the third act, and that's where it all fell apart. However, there are some characters in here that you really don't like, especially one of the main female characters who is just a little bit of a bitch. But it had some okay little kills here and there, but the third act, it did just run out of steam, and it didn't quite know what to do with itself, and the reveal was pathetic. I gotta say, it's one of the worst reveals I've ever seen in a horror movie, I'm not gonna lie. And it does feel a little bit low budget compared to movies like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Very 90s feel to it. But it's a watchable horror movie. I was quite enjoying it up until that last 30 minutes, but it's fine. It's watchable. It's nothing special. It's nothing too memorable. I'm even struggling to remember much of it now, but that's what finally see it. So that is Lover's Lane. Next up is another horror movie I have reviewed over on my horror channel, and that is Baghead. Yes, very, very silly name for a horror movie. Me and my friends used to insult each other when we were like 15, calling each other Baghead on the streets of Liverpool. So this title was pretty funny to me. And this is basically a movie about this young girl who is given her father's pub after he dies, and there's something lurking down in the cellar, and this thing is called Baghead. And when you can talk to a dead loved one for 2 minutes and not much longer. However, if it goes over the 2 minute mark, sinister things can start to happen. Kind of like the movie Talk to Me a little bit, but this is a good concept. And after about 30 minutes, I started to lose interest because it just keeps doing the same thing over and over. Characters are coming into the pub wanting to speak to dead ones, and some bad things happen after that. But it just kept recycling the same thing over and over. However, I do think it left on a very good climax. I did like the ending, but it goes for so many stupid, dumb jump scares that I was like, oh no, with even ones with the sound effects thrown in, and you're just like, oh no, please. And I was worried about that going in because of the trailer, and it was exactly that. The trailer was like the film, just full of generic, pathetic jump scares, and not once did I think this movie was scary. And it's a very, very dark film as well. Someone switch the damn lights on. There's an entity living in your cellar. Put the lights on, you'll feel a little bit better. So that is Baghead. Next up, I finally watched I Am Sick of These Motherfucking Snakes on This Motherfucking Plane. Yeah, sorry about swearing there, but that is the famous quote from this movie, of course, from Samuel L. Jackson, the main man. Yeah, I watched a bit of this film back in the day, and I don't quite know why I didn't carry on watching it, but I finally got round to it. It's just one of them movies that's passed me by, and it's basically about a bunch of characters on a plane, and there's snakes on there that are trying to kill them all. I didn't even need to explain that plot, did I? Yeah, well, basically, it's Samuel L. Jackson. He's got this witness who's going to testify against this mob boss, and the mob boss puts these deadly snakes on the plane to try and bring the plane down and kill all the passengers, so he can't testify. It was fun enough. There was some dodgy CGI on some of the snakes, but some of them, they looked okay. It was a fun time, an entertaining thrill ride. I like movies that are based on planes, to be honest. However, the story that it went for, it kind of forgot about it because it's all about him being a witness to testify, and it just totally forgot about that by the end. Like, it was just like, you could have wrapped that up a little bit better, I suppose, but no, they didn't. But yeah, there's some fun characters in this movie, some stupid characters. Keenan Rockmore is in here, or from Keenan and Kel. And he plays a significant part in saving the day in this movie, but you can't quite believe why he tries to save the day. Basically, he says he's got 2,000 hours worth of flying experience, and then he finally takes the seat, and it's all on Flight Simulator. So yeah, it's a fun time. I'm glad to have finally watched it. That is Snakes on a Plane. I'm sure most of you have seen this film. Last up, guys, we do have Batman Gotham by Gaslight. I've got a whole bunch of these Batman movies, and I've only got one more to watch now, so you'll probably see that next month because I'm planning on watching it soon. But this is Batman Gotham by Gaslight. This is all done in a London-style setting. Even it's got Gotham made to look like London, basically. And it's got a Jack the Ripper character going around, and Batman is trying to stop him. And I thought this was one of the better Batman animated films, to be honest. I loved the style of it. I loved the location change. Even though it's Gotham, it looks totally different than it does in all these other animated films. Great voice work once again, great animation. It's just one of the better ones. There's been some poor ones I've watched of these recently, but this one kind of, yeah, it's up there. And I liked the ending. I didn't quite see that coming about the reveal of who Jack the Ripper is. So yeah, pretty good film. Quite enjoyed it. That is Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Okay, guys, hope you all enjoyed this end of month vlog. What did you think of these movies? Did you disagree? Do you agree with whatever I said about them? Please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel if this is your sort of thing. And don't forget to get over to my friend Sam's channel and check his channel out and give him a subscription if that's your sort of thing. Thanks so much, guys. You all take care, and I'll see you on the next video.